Hey, Captain Picard, the guy who never takes a vacation, is finally taking a vacation. I'm sure it will be calm and uneventful. This is a review of the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Captain's Holiday. If you have not seen this episode, and you don't want to know if Picard has come to Risa seeking Jamaharon, or what the hell that even means, be warned. Spoilers beyond this point. I know you're all here because you want to see Patrick Stewart in his little shorts, and the sooner we get started, the sooner we'll get there, so let's just get to it, shall we? We open on these two alien weirdos beaming down to the planet Risa and asking the customer service computer where Captain Picard's room is. The computer's like, Captain Picard's not here. The first alien says, were we mistaken? And the second alien says, no. He will come. Phrasing, but accurate either way. Cut to the Enterprise, where Captain Picard and Counselor Troi have just returned from a grueling 2-week negotiation to settle a trade dispute. Picard is absolutely wiped and heads straight to his ready room as soon as he returns to the bridge. Riker's like, what's his problem? Troi says he's burned out. Know what he needs? For all of us to mind our own business and let him recover and get back up to speed in his own way? No, a vacation. Holiday Road. Oh, and in this one, Wally World is an entire planet, which is closed for repairs for the next 2 weeks. Sorry, Jean-Luc. Everybody back in the shuttlecraft. After the credits, Picard's subordinates begin laying siege to their exhausted captain. First, Beverly comes in and says, it's been brought to my attention that a member of this crew is suffering symptoms of extreme overwork, but he's ignoring them. Picard's like, I know you're talking about me. I'm not taking a vacation. Then Riker corners him on a turbo lift and says, hey, if you haven't decided where to go on vacation yet, there's this place called Risa, beautiful weather, great food, and brother, from the moment you beam down, you'll be up to your eyeballs in pussy and titties and cocks and balls and taints and whatever else you want. It's amazing. I should live there. Why don't I live there? Picard's like, I'm not going on vacation. Then they get to the bridge and Troi is like, hey, by the way, my mother is coming aboard when we get to Starbase. Picard's like, actually, a vacation sounds like just what I need. As Picard finishes packing his things, Riker and Troi are on hand to continue harassing him. They're just determined to bully him all the way off the ship, aren't they? Riker's like, are you sure you want to take all these books with you? Ulysses? Justine? Space Raptor Butt Invasion? Picard's like, just some light reading in case I get bored. Riker says, when you get to Risa, can you pick me up a souvenir? It's called a Horgon. Is it a sex thing? Is it a what? I didn't hear what you just said. Just make sure to prominently display the Horgon near you after you get one. Okay? Bye! Have fun! Picard beams down to Risa and immediately bumps into this woman. She's trying to get away from this Ferengi guy, so she throws her arms around Picard's neck like, darling, so good to see you again, and she kisses him. Once the Ferengi leaves, she's like, oops, thought you were someone else, later, and leaves. Picard's like, ugh, beautiful women kissing me, I knew I was going to hate it here. And he walks off with those alien weirdos from the first scene watching on. Later, Picard is sitting in the sun with his newly purchased Horgon, wearing his little shorts. You're welcome, ladies and NBs. And gents, but he's a little annoyed because he's interrupted by this woman who asks if he is seeking something called Jamaharon. He tells her, look, all I want to do is sit here, catch a little sun, wear my little shorts, and read my enormous book. 5 gorgeous women and 24 very fit, well-groomed men have approached me to ask if I'm seeking Jamaharon, and I have no idea what they or you are on about. The woman says, well, if you don't want Jamaharon, you should probably put the Horgon away, because it's basically an invitation to everyone for an all-you-can-eat-you buffet. Picard's like, Riker! It's just like him to try and get me laid. The woman tells Picard to try Jamaharon sometime. He might enjoy it. Then she leaves. But then that Ferengi guy from earlier steps up and says to Picard, leave the woman alone. Not the woman who was just here. The other woman. The one who kissed you. Leave her alone. But also, tell her to hand over the disc she owes me. Picard gets up like, hey, man, I don't know who the fuck you are or why the fuck you're talking to me, but if you don't walk away in the next 5 seconds, I'm going to take that Horgon and shove it up your ass. I don't know if that's Jamaharon, but I bet you I'll enjoy it. The Ferengi's like, this isn't over, human, and stomps away. Then the woman who kissed Picard earlier comes over and says, hi, I'm Vash. Picard's like, the Horgon is for a friend, okay? I don't want to have sex with you. Stop trying to have sex with me, please! Vash is like, okay, fine. I couldn't help but notice your argument with that Ferengi just now. It got a little tense. For a moment, I thought it might come to blows. The punching kind of blows. This being Risa, I felt I should clarify. Picard gets up and heads back toward his room for some privacy. Vash follows him, and they are both accosted in the lobby by the Ferengi guy, whose name is Sovak, and who's like, aha! I knew you two were in this together. Give me my disc! Vash is like, it's not your disc. And as she and Sovak argue about it, Vash sneaks a disc into Picard's pocket. Picard's like, you two fight amongst yourselves, I'm out of here, and goes to his room. In his room, Picard finds those two alien weirdos. They explain who they are. They're Vorgons. Picard's like, oh fuck, are you gonna make me listen to bad poetry? They're like, no, Vorgon. We're from the future. We seek the Tox Utat. Do you know of it? Picard's like, I know the legend. It tells of a visitor from the future who left behind a mysterious device called the Tox Utat. Well, that story's not very helpful though, is it? That's like if you don't know what a telephone is and somebody says, it's the creation of Alexander Graham Bell who invented a device called the telephone. Thanks for clearing it up. The Vorgons explained that the Tox Utat is a device capable of putting out a star. Pretty powerful weapon. The scientist who invented it was worried it would fall into the wrong hands, so he hid it somewhere in the past. These Vorgons have been sent back to locate it, and they believe that within the next few days, Picard will find the Tox Utat somewhere here on Risa. The Vorgons insist if Picard does find it, he must give it to them immediately. Picard's like, yeah, sure, okay. The Vorgons leave, and then Picard finds that disc Vash slipped into his pocket. A little later, Picard drops in on Vash in her room, which has been ransacked by Sovak. Picard holds up the disc and says, thanks for giving me this disc full of your nudes, but now that I've thoroughly enjoyed them, I return the disc to you. Picard asks Vash if her business with Sovak has anything to do with the Tox Utat. She says yes, she worked as an assistant to the famous archaeology professor who spent years searching for the Tox Utat. He died, but that disc contains his research, all the information necessary to pinpoint the Utat's location here on Risa. That's what Sovak is after. Sovak helped out the professor with certain not quite legal areas of his research, and now Sovak wants the Utat for himself. Vash knows where the Tox Utat is, and she and Picard agree to go find it themselves before Sovak figures out where it is. So they change into their future Tomb Raider clothes and are about to embark on their hike into the wilderness to find the Utat when Sovak shows up with a gun and demands the disc. He also tells Picard that Vash stole the disc from the professor after he paid her to do it, but then she double-crossed Sovak, keeping the disc and his money. Picard's like, I really don't care that much, and Vash tosses Sovak her backpack, and while Sovak is distracted, Picard grabs the gun and punches out Sovak. That night, Picard and Vash are well on their way to where Vash thinks the Utat is, and they stop and make camp. Vash admits that Sovak did pay her for that disc, but she never intended to give it to him. She just took his money to pay for her trip to Risa, and she didn't steal the disc. The professor died, and she was his assistant for 5 years, so she feels she had a right to it. They lay out the bedroll and settle in to get some sleep. They fight over the covers. Vash says, you know, you did look pretty disappointed the other day when it turned out I wasn't seeking Jamaharon. And in one of my favorite Patrick Stewart line readings of the whole series, Picard laughs incredulously and goes, you are outrageous. And they kiss, and there's a tasteful fade to black so they can fuck in privacy. Back from the fuck break, Picard and Vash have reached the cave where the Tox Utat is supposed to be, according to the dead professor's notes. They break out the shovels and start digging, and then the Vorgons beam in like, don't mind us, we just want to watch, like we did last night. Picard explains to Vash who the Vorgons are and how they're supposed to give them the Tox Utat after they find it. Vash isn't happy about that. Then Sovak enters holding a gun like, aha! How does it feel for you to be double-crossed, Vash? Picard asks how Sovak managed to find them, and he says that he found a partially burned copy of Vash's disc in her room after they left, and was able to recover the data from it. Nice going, Vash. What kind of a dork backs up their data? Picard and Vash start digging, with Sovak holding his gun on them, but after they've been at it for a few hours, they still haven't found the Toxutot, even though, according to the professor's research, they should have dug it up by now. The Vorgons are like, "This is weird, you were supposed to find it." "Oh well," and they beam away. Picard and Vash also give up and leave the hole. Sovak refuses to give up, though. He puts his gun down, grabs a shovel, and starts digging himself, refusing to abandon hope of finding the Toxutot. Picard and Vash are like, "Yeah, okay, have fun with that," and they start back to the resort. When they get back, Vash says goodnight to Picard, and Picard goes to his room, and then Riker calls to let him know the Enterprise has arrived to pick him up. Picard looks like he has some doubts about, I don't know, something, so he tells Riker to hold off, but be ready to execute Transporter Code 14 on his order. Riker's like, "Sure, whatever." Cut to Vash, having changed clothes, looking like she's on her way out. But first, she pauses at a display, a big Horgon surrounded by a bunch of smaller Horgons. Picard, sitting in a chair on the other side of the lobby like a creep, calls out, "Leaving already?" Vash is like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" Picard says, "What's up is, you're going to tell me what you did with the Toxutot. Check it out. The way I figure it, there's no way you'd be dumb enough to just leave a copy of your professor's research disk lying around for Sovak to find. So you must have left it there on purpose so he would follow us, so he would see us not find the Toxutot, so he would give up hounding you and trying to look for it. But why would you do that? And how could you know the Toxutot wouldn't really be there? Because you already went there by yourself, probably as soon as you got here to Risa, and found the Toxutot and hid it. So where'd you hide it?" Vash is like, "You got me." And she picks up one of the 4 display-only Horgons and opens the top, revealing the Toxutot, just a big-ass chunk of sparkly crystal inside. The Vorgons beam in like, "Hey, all right, we'll take that." But Vash tells Picard that the professor told her that a couple of Vorgons tried to steal the Toxutot, so they can't be trusted with it either. Picard is like, "Oh, you are all just such fundamentally dishonest people, aren't you? All of you. So disappointing. You know what?" He taps his communicator. "Enterprise, this is Picard. Code 14 now." He puts the Toxutot on the ground and steps back, and a transporter beam engulfs it, and a moment later, it explodes. So there's a designated code for using the transporter to blow shit up, and it's code 14? Like there's 13 other things you can do with the transporter that are considered more useful than that? Or did they make it code 14 on purpose to discourage people from doing it so much? Like, if it's, I don't know, code 4, it's going to be on the first page. Everybody's going to see it. They're going to be like, "Oh shit, you can do explosions with the transporter. I can't wait to try that. I'm going to do that all the time." So they make it code 14 because nobody's going to read that far into the manual. Nobody except try-hard dorks like Picard. I guarantee Riker's ass had to look it up first. He was probably turning to Worf like, "There's a code 14?" Anyway, the Toxutot has been destroyed. The Vorgons say, "Our history records that you destroyed the Toxutot, Picard. You have fulfilled your destiny." Which sucks for us. We'll probably be fired. Anyway, later. Get it? Later, because we're from the future? Whatever, never mind. And they leave. Picard and Vash say goodbye, and Picard returns to the Enterprise. Riker's like, "So how was your vacation?" Picard says, "It was great, but hey, about that Horgon you asked me to get for you, I'm not happy that you tricked me into advertising for casual sex, so I'm entering a formal reprimand in your record and recommending that Starfleet discipline you. Because of what you've done, you won't be promoted to captain until our last movie." Do I still get to direct? Yes, but not the last one. I'm sure it'll be fine. The end! One of my other favorite TV series from the same era as TNG, which I also make videos about, is MacGyver, and one of the things I frequently compliment the creators of MacGyver for is how they were eventually able to open up the premise of the show wide enough that they could make an episode about pretty much whatever they wanted. The show was flexible enough to accommodate any story they wanted to tell. But that's not just a MacGyver thing. You could do the same thing with Star Trek. This episode, Captain's Holiday, is a perfect example. Sure, it's a show about people on a spaceship exploring the galaxy, but you want to do a romantic treasure hunt episode? Drop the captain off on a planet where there's a treasure to be found, give him an attractive love interest, throw in a few aliens and some time travel bullshit to make it a little more Star Trek-ish, and there you go. Works like a shiny, star-killing charm. I've seen this episode a bunch of times over the years, and I've always enjoyed it, but it hasn't been an episode that immediately springs to mind when I think about TNG, you know? It's entertaining. It's a pleasant way to spend an hour, well, 3/4 of an hour or so without commercials. But in the overall context of the series, it tends to fade into the background. I had no strong memories of it or feelings about it when I sat down to watch it for this review, and I am happy and a little bit surprised to be able to tell you that one of the things I liked the most about it this time through was how smartly written it is. The episode runs on an adventure plot, but it's also a comedy, and the comedy comes on the strongest in the early scenes, before Picard arrives on Risa. It's always a temptation when writing comedy, especially for a show that isn't ordinarily a comedy, to dumb the characters down for the sake of making the jokes work. This episode doesn't really do that. The series of scenes where Picard is bothered by various members of the crew about taking a vacation is delightful, and what makes it work is that Picard is written to be smart enough to recognize what his colleagues are doing right away. When Beverly comes in to tell Picard about this anonymous crew member who is exhausted and overworked, there is no confusion, there is no hackneyed moment where Picard obliviously says, well, whoever this crew member is, they should stop being obstinate and take some time off. Picard picks up on what Beverly is doing right away and plays along sarcastically until Beverly threatens to use her authority as chief medical officer to order him to take a vacation. The best one is when Troy tries to threaten Picard off the ship by saying her mother is coming to visit. In my plot summary, I played it like Picard reacted to the thought of seeing Luoxana Troy by immediately agreeing to go on vacation, but actually what he does is call Riker into the ready room for a private chat and say, okay, so is everyone just gonna give me shit about taking a vacation until I finally agree to it? It's a sitcom gag, but Picard is written as a character who knows he's in a sitcom and recognizes the tropes for what they are, and that's why it works. Once the action shifts to Risa, there's the misunderstanding about the Horgon that everyone remembers, and I like that bit, but I think I like the joke that follows it even better. Picard finds out what the Horgon is for, and he's like, Riker! And then he explains to the woman that he bought the Horgon for a friend. She's like, oh, someone close to you? Picard says, that's right. Someone you love. I wouldn't go that far. Very nice. The jokes fall off for the most part after that point, and the romantic adventure of it all takes over, which is fine and enjoyable enough, but the comedy works so well that I do wish the episode had kept that going throughout, and made Picard and Vash's quest for the Toxutot a little quippier and zanier than it turns out to be. The heart of the story is the relationship between Picard and Vash, and that works well. The two of them have good chemistry, which carried over into real life, because they started dating shortly after filming this episode. Patrick Stewart was known to complain that Picard didn't do nearly enough fighting and fucking on the show, so I guess when he finally got the opportunity to do some of the second one, he just went all in. Hetrick is charming as Vash and believable as an independent and amoral character, not completely unprincipled, but an opportunist who will take the advantages she can get for herself and not lose any sleep over it. There aren't many characters like her on TNG, at least ones who aren't outright villains, and she, the actor and the character, brings an energy to the show that it often lacks. Sovak, the Ferengi, is played by Max Grodenchik, a few years away from originating his far more well-known Ferengi character, Quark's brother Rom, on Deep Space Nine. While Rom goes on to become one of that show's most interesting and unexpectedly complex characters, Sovak is pretty much the opposite. He is a generic, all-purpose Ferengi. He's greedy and horny and treacherous, and that's the story of Sovak. Grodenchik makes him fun to watch by biting into the role with gusto, and he seems to be having a good time. Few actors are as effective as Grodenchik at delivering that deviously indignant sneer that was the default mode of most Ferengi prior to Deep Space Nine. As far as the Vorgons go, the makeup and costumes do most of the work. The performances by Karen Landry and Michael Champion, respectively, are fine. There's just not much for them to do other than be present and say their lines. Their defining trait is that they want the Tox-Utot, and the Tox-Utot is as plain and simple a MacGuffin as any Star Trek episode has ever had. What it is and what it does are beside the point. It's a thing from the future that the people from the future want, and ultimately Picard decides they shouldn't have it and destroys it, thus fulfilling his role in history. When that's over, the Vorgons take off. Done and done. I can't say much for them as characters, but as plot devices, they work just fine. Captain's Holiday was written by Ira Steven Behr and directed by Chip Chalmers. Behr would go on to eventually become the showrunner of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where he would write or co-write many more Ferengi episodes, among other memorable contributions to the Star Trek franchise, and this was Chalmers' first time directing an episode of Star Trek, though it would not be his last. He would go on to direct more TNG, including the much heavier episodes The Wounded and Ethics, as well as a couple of not-so-heavy Deep Space Nine episodes, The Magnificent Ferengi and Take Me Out to the Holosuite. This one is a light-hearted show with some funny jokes and satisfying character beats. That's all it offers, and that's all I expect from it. It's probably not in very many people's top 10, and it's not in mine, but that's okay. Not every episode needs to be Best of Both Worlds or Chain of Command, and not every episode should be. We've got a few solid guest stars, an adventure plot that's a little bit romancing the stone, some freaky time travel aliens, and along with all of that, the captain gets to do a little fucking and even a little fighting. Everybody's happy. Except for the Ferengi guy. And the freaky time travel aliens. Everybody we give a shit about is happy. Those are my thoughts on Captain's Holiday. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next time as this batch of reviews of episodes featuring time loops and paradoxes continues with a look at one more episode from Star Trek The Next Generation. This one is from Season 5, and it's titled Cause and Effect. See you next time for that. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.